long time. I'll do it here again. Instead of going down Thursday, so she got it today.
I'm good when you are. You ready to be on standby? Okay.
17.
And then the 18th is. Well, that's
No, that's
Jay sent out 32 letters to possible custodial positions for.
This meeting of the Wetzel County Board of Education is called to order. We will open with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Castello, followed by the invocation led by Mrs. Fauner. Anyone not wishing to participate may stay seated.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, we are in troubled times. Some of our daily tasks are struggles. We see terrible things on the news and on TV, but we have a wonderful staff and wonderful community, and we ask that you bless us and bless all of our students so that we can get through this year the best that we can. Amen.
First item on our agenda this evening is superintendent's information and an Argonaut announcement. Mr.
Yep.
Drummond.
President Price, I'm pleased to announce, and sorry I'm a little muffled in this mask, but Bree Herrick and Faith, would you come on up please for a minute. And we have got Faith Yoho, Ms. Price, and with our social distancing, we'll do the best we can this way here. But there you go.
Certificates are on the table there.
But they are.
Thank you.
They are.
Just turn and let a picture from the
They're going to get a
and I'll
picture
stand
taken.
behind you.
Hold on.
He's smiling. Yeah, you can't tell I'm smiling, but I am.
Your face always is smiling.
Smile with your eyes.
That's right.
Good.
Good, everybody good?
All right.
Congratulations, ladies.
Glad,
Thank you.
glad to have their parents with them, but they are both Argonauts, Jason Learning Argonauts, and they will be doing a virtual Argonaut program with Jason Learning. They will be working, they have a Zoom meeting this coming Thursday, and they'll start working on their project working with national scientists. So I'm anxious to get on board on that Zoom and listen to that also. And if they'll be giving us updates, they'll be working with the community, they'll be doing a capstone type project. They'll be doing a paper with that, and it's a great opportunity. So I met with both of them. I'm also working with some corporate sponsors to see what I can maybe have an additional Argonaut or two with some corporate sponsors. So if that happens, I'll do something fast. So there's some work out there in the progress, so just letting you know. But thank you guys. Thank these wonderful ladies. They are both juniors at Magnolia and will represent Wetzel County well as a ambassador for Jason and Wetzel County Schools, and thank you guys. Thank you so much.
And you left out two of my former science students.
Is that it? Good. Well, thank you guys. You're more than welcome and take off if you wish to stay. But thank you so much. And I'll be popping on Thursday, and maybe a couple others we'll see. Okay. Thank you.
See you guys.
The next item on our agenda is delegations. I believe we have Marley Amos and Jessica Robinson. If I'm saying that right, at least based on the spelling. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jessica Robinson. I'm the AFT staff rep for Wetzel County. We're here tonight to speak on behalf of the virtual policy that you have on comment. First of all, I'd really like to thank everybody in this room because I truly believe that this year is going off better than anyone really could have expected. I get calls from all over the state, and I've just been really surprised with how well the planning that you guys have put in, how it's come to fruition, because it's going really well, I think. One thing that we are asking tonight, it's not really a big ask. What we're asking for is basically some decisive language when it comes to transitions in virtual school. Teachers and service personnel, they're being asked, there's a lot being asked of them right now. And I think that having a set procedure and policy in place for when students transition is really important for feeling some sort of stability. And I mean, I could talk to you about how we're all craving stability right now. I could talk to you about policy all night. I really don't want to bore you with that. I'd rather you hear from somebody that's in the classroom, from somebody who this policy will directly affect. And she's been talking to many other AFT union members. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce AFT leadership, Marley Amos. Thank you guys so much for all you do.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. If you don't know me, I'm Marley Amos, and I'm here this evening to speak on behalf of our AFT members concerning the proposed virtual distance learning policy. First, I want to say we are very grateful for all of our support that we have, and we are definitely in unprecedented times. We'd like to thank the board office members and staff for their support over the last couple of months in regards to the COVID response. However, our main concern regarding the virtual distance learning policy is the broad use of the term flexibility. We feel allowing students to return to school after the initial 10-day period suggested by the West Virginia Department of Education is a safety hazard for students and staff. Our staff is working very hard to maintain the CDC and state guidelines for social distancing and hygiene practices in our schools. By allowing such flexibility, it creates a revolving door of students in and out of our classrooms, which in regards, we are putting students and staff in harm's way. We have stressed the importance of safety in small numbers and safety practices to keep kids safe in our school. We will be breaking that bubble of safety by allowing new students to come and go from our classrooms. However, we understand that situations and circumstances change quickly in homes. We live that daily with our students. We understand that families could be called back to work, or they lose a babysitter, or an unexpected illness. Those are all valid reasons to return to school. However, we have had certain families change their minds 3 and 4 times already, and we are only 1 week into the school year. Teachers have taken an immense amount of time to plan and prepare materials over the last couple of weeks for the students on their rosters. Having a student just show up in the morning is stressful. For the teacher, for the new student, and our current students. We already have so little face-to-face time with them this school year. We want to make the most of the time that we do have, and having this revolving door of students will equal lost instructional time. Another issue we are noticing as classroom teachers and distance education teachers are discussing their instruction is the use of different programs and curriculums being used. If a student is moving back and forth between 2 educational settings, there may be great differences in expectations, workload, and educational materials that are being used. This can be quite confusing for students and parents, and along those same lines, how will grades operate? Will students be expected to finish their distance assignments? Will they be given zeros? If they move back and forth frequently, grades will be nearly impossible to monitor. We would like to offer a couple of suggestions to help alleviate this situation. First, follow the suggested guidelines from the West Virginia Department of Education to allow 10 days for parents and guardians to change their minds. Next, only allow a student to return if it's safety or an educational issue for the student or family. This would only be given the opportunity 1 time. And please give teachers a 1 day's notice to prepare materials. And lastly, give parents the option to have their child return to school at the semester break. Thank you for your time and your attention this evening. Please consider some of the options listed as you discuss the virtual distance learning policy later this evening. Thank you very much.
I have a copy of the suggestions that she went over for everyone.
Yes, that was in the email, right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
gotcha. So they have it all.
Oh, but
But
well,
you're good.
you
We'll
have
take a hard
Good.
look. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
And thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. And we can bring that up when we come to the policy discussion.
Thank you very much.
Next item on our agenda is a board discussion for re-entry. Is there any further in here? We keep talking about re-entry, and I guess we're technically re-entered. And so maybe we need to start talking about what's happening.
And President Price and members of the board, I just want to let you know what a great week we had last week, meaning 4 days, and it was very positive. The reports that I got back, and I also have our staff here to answer anything that you guys have. But I can tell you, I was very pleased. The professionalism, the care, everything that that got feedback, we took care of. And I know you may have additional questions if we could answer. I just want to tell you that it was a very good week. Now we're back at a full week, so this will be a whole week of 5 days. So I'll keep you posted, try to keep you updated on any updates we get. Right now, I believe there's a meeting at the State Department going on. It started at 5 with some new information. And if we get any of that information, I'll share that with you guys also. But if any of the directors wanted to add where they're at, how things are going, I know Mrs. Wells, Mrs. Stanford has been out and about, Mrs. Novotny, Mrs. McPherson, Mr. McPherson. He has a great technology update. I'm not aware. Did they get that, Mr. McPherson, or I'll share that with the board that you give me on Fridays, the technology?
Share, yeah,
okay,
please.
so I'll get that to them, and then Mr. Marcus and Mr. Batten's back there. I tried to send his pictures to you through my phone, but I'm going to have to do that through my computer. It wouldn't go through, so I'll get those to you soon. But Mr. Batten, thank you. So any update that we can answer, or Mr. Cook would be glad to, and Mr. Lancaster also. So thank you.
Well, it's kind of hard to even know what to ask right now when we've only been back 1 week, and that 1 week is only one grade per day. It's kind of, I've heard good things. It's all, I haven't heard a lot. The only question I would have was, I know what we're doing for the in-person folks. Are we engaged in those distance learning folks? Have we engaged those students as well? And how is that going? I guess in some ways would be, because I assume that, are they rolling in more detail than the 1 day a week in-person folks? You understand my question? Have they been receiving more in a sense, or are we just kind of getting our feet wet there too?
I think that's a really good question, and I think that in fact it's one that we had discussed in my office before we came in here, just as something we were wondering about. We know for a fact that some teachers have just taken off and run with it, and do have more instructional days than some of the kids have that are coming in person. However, some teachers are getting their feet wet and are not trying to get their students ahead of the ones who attend in person.
I understand.
So I believe that we're going to see a little bit of everything, but for the most part, my gut, my feeling just from talking to people is they're trying to keep the kids pretty much the same as we go through,
Gotcha.
so that one does not have the advantage over the other.
I understand.
Okay.
I did get a call in relation to that, that they said that their child got up today, lower elementary, was so excited to start to meet their teacher, because last week it was just all stuff online, and they still haven't had a face-to-face. And he said this wasn't against the school or the teacher. He knows that it's a tough time, but wondered if they would be starting back to some type of a face-to-face on the computer with these students that are doing Watsakani remote.
I can tell you that Schoology has full functionality to do that.
Okay.
And I've gotten a lot of pictures of that happening already, so
Okay, but
the
there's, I guess,
functionality is there.
And I realize it's a struggle, it's new to learn it and all, but they will be getting, I mean, that is the plan, right? That they will get some face-to-face with their teachers doing the remote work?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm seeing the heads. I'm shaking my head this
Yes,
way because
they
I'm watching
should.
their heads. go
Okay,
down.
all right.
So,
As the parent of some distance learners, I will gladly give my opinion, viewpoint, everything that's been going on. Because of some medical reasons, I chose to keep my kids home. We've got a couple surgeries coming up, at least for the first semester. It's the smartest decision I can make. So, last week, whenever the school week started, woke up, I had the kids check everything. There were a few syllabuses for every class, but not very much information as to what they should do. So I told them, email your teachers, ask them. I said, we might not get a response till tomorrow because I don't expect these teachers to be able to immediately respond. I think the longest we've waited for any email has been just shy of 3 hours. And I mean, they are on it. They all pretty much said that the first week, last week, excuse me, they're going over everything in the school. These are the new policies, this is what we're doing. And just as Mrs. Wells said, they wanna keep the kids as close together as they can. Today, whenever they got up, my 7th grader had an invitation from a teacher to join the classroom. Now, I'm assuming that would have been face-to-face. However, at the time that was going on, he is in virtual Spanish through the state. So he wasn't able to do that. But that invitation was there. So to answer that, it's coming.
That's what I thought. And
It
like I
is
said,
coming.
the person that called me was very kind about it, but just wanted to
Mhm.
make sure that there would be some face-to-face time with their teacher.
I can say there was a lot of information there for them today, and any questions they had, like I said, they're on it.
Okay, good.
I've been very, very happy with the way that it's been going today.
Well, I heard from every single attendance area, almost every single school, and parents from all over.
Mhm.
And in school, I did not hear one negative comment. I mean, it was all positive. One person did question, they felt that their school was small enough that they could have school 4 days a week instead of splitting A to B. One person questioned that to me.
I had the same question.
You had that too? Yeah, I had that question.
I think we've all heard that probably.
And
Some
I don't remember, did you, and you can help me here, Mr. Toman, did we say the principals could decide what they wanted for their school? Cause I know 100 went 4 days, correct?
Yeah, I think that was a direction from the board that the schools.
Okay,
the
that's
schools
what I was
were
thinking, we
doing that.
discussed that it was like that.
Mhm.
So, but that question was brought up to me, they felt their school could go to 4 days.
That was my answer to the person, that it was a school decision, and it was based on the need to be able to social distance.
And I think I mean, again, I guess one man's opinion, I suppose, in some senses, but my hope would be that at some point, if things progress well and we stay green, that we'll be able to progressively, and whether we start with a certain segment of that, if that high school is A, B, and then they wanna start bringing in maybe seniors a little more or something to get them more caught up, ready for college issues or whatever it is, that there might be some approach. But I'd hope that we're evaluating and that we don't have, I guess my hope would be that we're not waiting till a whole semester goes by before we at least look at that. Now, county could go yellow, orange, purple, blue, whatever the governor's gonna, I'm sorry, whatever color we're gonna have, this week, and I'm so in trouble. But anyway, but you understand what I mean. We don't know what tomorrow's gonna be for Wetzel County, but if we stay on the green side of things, then I think we need to be thinking, make sure we're planning ahead to start integrating more and more, for our kids.
I just want to mention too, and I meet with the clinical nurse from the health department, Ashley Geiler, every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, along with the Tyler County Superintendent. So we have a Tuesday meeting every Tuesday at 11 o'clock. So I'll have that tomorrow. So and get some updates. So they have communicated incredible. I could say the same thing. The State Department, everybody, from the information I'm getting, it's sometimes on the weekends at 9 o'clock or on a Sunday night or whatever, I may wait till Monday to send those out to you. So just trying to copy you on the needed information that I do send to the principals and directors, but some of that I'm sending that to you also. So.
Yeah,
Mr. Marcus, of all of our enrolled students, are they engaged in either face-to-face learning or some type of distance learning?
All of our students were enrolled.
Yes, I want to know if we got students out there who are not doing
Not
either.
doing either one.
I've only received a couple phone calls so far about some different families, and the ones I received the calls about are families who are going to homeschool. I don't have that documentation yet, but supposedly it's in the mail. So the other calls I've received is yes.
Ms. Novotny, are we meeting the needs of our special needs students?
Yes, that's a work in progress still. Our special ed teachers are, of course, working really hard. Our teachers not only have to review all of their IEPs for their students, they also have to have meetings with the parents. They have to revise some of the education plans. What can I say? We have to, what was I just gonna say? I'm getting all over. Really fast right now. They're contacting us constantly, all day long. I mean, all of our department is answering phone calls and questions about IEPs and what should we do. Many of our students in most of our schools, I can't say all of our schools, they're coming 4 days a week. Many of our most significantly handicapped students are coming 4 days a week, which is wonderful. The others are coming on the blended schedules, which is also good. Everybody's getting the transportation. We work with Mr. back here. We talked today about a case.
They do kind of look like brothers, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Which one is it?
Same
I didn't have my glasses on, I probably wouldn't know. But anyway, the teachers are questioning, they're asking questions, they're revising, they're having to have IEP meetings, and we're using our GoToMeeting app to do that, so we're helping them to schedule these meetings. Our team is participating in those meetings. I participate in those meetings to get the kids on board. Our kids have to have direct minutes. We have to have, if they have 200 minutes for reading per week, they have to get that direct instruction. We can't provide it, paper and pencil. We can't provide it with a videotape. We have to do it live with them to ensure that those minutes are covered. So it's a lot on the teachers. We're having some of our teachers, as we're doing in general ed, do the virtual instruction for the students, because we have many learners that are just virtual, and then we also have some learners that are in the blended model 2 days a week, or some are 4 days a week. The other thing is what I forgot to tell you before. In the case that we go remote, because we're gold or silver or blue, whatever we might be, Mr.
I shouldn't have said that.
I know.
It gets confusing sometimes when we keep changing them. That's all I was trying to say.
If we go remote, all of our students who are, if our students are fully virtual, this does not apply to them. But any child that's blended will have to have a remote learning plan. Last year we called them distance learning plans. This year they're called remote learning plans, which means if we don't go to school tomorrow, each child will have a remote learning plan in which we need to detail what services they're getting, how they're getting them, how we will communicate to the parents on their goals and objectives. So our teachers have to work on that. So that's the IEP, revisions, amendments, and remote learning plans. So I better stop there, but I think we had a pretty good week. Thank you.
Mr. Bobby, any discussion about special ed students going the 4 days or 5 days that we talked before? I don't know if the board was aware of that, but I just
Yes.
thought just.
I said some of our schools or students with more significant disabilities are going 4 days a week. Pretty sure Magnolia is. Some of the students at New Martinsville are. Some of the students at Shortline are. I don't think Payton City is, and I don't believe Long Branch is. Oh, 100 is for sure.
Good, thank you. I'm sorry too, I missed it.
Okay, sorry about that. If you have any questions, please text me, call me, write me, anything. I'll answer your questions.
One more question and I'll.
You're fine, Mr. Gary.
Mr. McPherson.
Yes, sir.
With the virtual learning, the past week, Frontier Internet out in the shoreline has been really bad. I don't know, you think that's because we went virtual learning?
I'm sure it hasn't helped.
Overload.
I'm sure it hasn't helped because, a lot of things were tested out in the past couple of weeks by everybody in the nation coming back, so.
Okay, 'cause I just know they're just, I got a new cell phone and it just took forever to get anything. Cause it would just keep freezing up the internet and you'd have to reset it and all that and, I don't know, so I can just imagine trying to do virtual learning on a
It'd be very
computer or
difficult.
a laptop with the with that internet being so spotty.
That's probably an issue we're going to have. You know, we've had several families already come back to school from distance learning.
Because of that.
For different reasons, but that is one of the reasons why, yes.
There's no
Yeah.
there's no quick answer.
No,
There's
right.
there's no.
I can't go rent a truck and start running fiber.
We
on
can't.
it.
And I suppose the only, the good thing, if you could say there's a good thing coming out of all this mess,
Mhm.
is that it has pushed that issue.
Yes, it has.
To where now it won't help in the immediate of this pandemic, but hopefully that infrastructure growth will aid us in what we're gonna be doing in the future for our students. But it's gonna be a while before.
Right.
You can throw as much money at it as you want to. It's about physical boots on the ground.
Right, there's
Go
not
out
enough
there and
people
run wire
doing
and
that.
do all that stuff. Yep. Jim,
Yeah, two more things.
go ahead.
Mr. Batten, I got a couple questions on wipes. Are we still gonna have more coming in, or people that are having breakfast and lunch in their rooms? Is it okay to just wash off the desks with, well, I had a chemist call me and said Dawn dishwashing detergent is, COVID-19 is fat soluble and it'll break down the shell, that they could use Dawn and water and wipe things off, but I just thought I'd ask for an update on the wipes.
Yeah, as far as the wipes are concerned, and really just like to give a shout out to like Joe Fox and Mark Lloyd and the maintenance crew and the bus operators and their aides and all the custodians. I mean, this stuff was pushed out a bunch, you know what I mean? And you know, and on that Friday before school started, we depleted all the wipes that we had.
Okay.
And I think I talked to almost every principal, and they were very comfortable with the amount they had. Since then, on past Tuesday, a rather large shipment, the yearly shipment came in. So we're stocked up, and Mark is starting to distribute those. I got an email from Mr. Lancaster the other day where, and you can allude to that if you want, Mr. Lancaster, but where we'll be receiving more supplies as far as wipes and those and so forth.
That's through Highmark, the insurance company. That's part of what they're providing. With the face shields, they're also providing some disinfectant wipes as well.
So I think we're you know, we're pretty comfortable with that right now, as far as our inventory of that and so forth. You know, like I said, the maintenance crew installed all the hand sanitizer, the dispensers around the buildings. I believe every classroom has hand sanitizer, whatever they need. The bus operators, you know, they sanitize their buses after each run. There's masks available on the buses for students and so forth, the same as there's masks available at the schools, even though generally, mainly, most students come with their own masks. You know, we wanted to make sure we were prepared for that. With Mrs. McPherson, as far as the water and so forth, Mark's delivered, wow, cases of water. I mean, there should be plenty of water at every school. You know, I know she's worked hard, and it's her department on the food, but the bus operators will be they're paired up already, and they will start delivering food on Wednesday, and they'll run their routes and deliver food to those families that are requesting that and so forth. So, but a lot of hard work by a lot of good people. So
It's been a big team effort, and it's worked out.
It was.
Really is.
It was to watch them do that. So I think we're in good shape. We'll try to continue to keep, you know, our supplies stocked up the best we can. So and you know, the availability. But so far we've been real pleased with the availability and so forth.
Okay, Mr. Farkas, I think I'm done with all my questions. I sent to Mr. Toman, and then he forwarded on to you, I assume, the questions about counselors and all.
Mhm.
And I was really glad to hear, and in case people in the community don't know, we do have certified counselors at all the schools.
Yes, ma'am.
And many states, many counties do not have that. We're high up on that.
Correct.
We only have one that's licensed. They're all certified, but only one that's licensed. That was brought to me from some research that I was doing. But what I'd like to see, if you could bring back to us next meeting, is how many students are there for how many counselors? So that we have that ratio. Like, is there one counselor for every 200 students, one counselor for every 400
It'd be
students?
about one for every 230. Because we have 10 counselors and we've got 2,300 some students.
Yeah, but the schools aren't evenly divided. So, for example, at New
Correct.
Martinsville, there's 2 counselors for 800 some kids.
Correct. The reason they're not evenly divided though is 2 different reasons. Number one, we made a decision as a board several years ago that each school would have a full-time counselor.
I agree with that.
So to do that, that makes it very difficult to just have it straight math where you're gonna have numerous counselors that we're not gonna fill. Because there is a large shortage of counselors. And also there's a difference between the counseling responsibilities at the grade school versus the high school.
I agree with that, but numbers are a big difference. So I still would like to see how many counselors are at each school and how many students are they serving at their school, if you could do that. And I know that you don't have to go by the national, you put that on the Association of School Counselors for what the ratio is, but I just think we need to make sure we have enough people out there, especially this year. This is just a tough year for a lot of people.
Was it 500 a counselor at one was a recommendation, I think, at one time? I think I remember seeing
So
that.
I thought it was like 225 or something. That's why I thought I'd ask him and he could get us the numbers.
I thought it was in the school law before, in my time as a principal, I think it was a recommendation, but not a requirement.
Correct.
Right.
And
And I
believe
think
it's
it was
around
500.
But the national one, I think, is less, but it's a national association.
The state one doesn't recognize the national one, but the state recommendation, that's your head nod, Mr. Yeager, used to be, I believe, 1 for 500. But it wasn't required, correct.
It's just a recommendation.
Right.
Yeah.
And at one time, we were, the situation of counseling, Magnolia has had 2 for forever.
Right.
New Martinsville School had 1 for a number of time, until we added them a second one. Peyton City Elementary never had any, they had like a 4th.
They split.
Yeah.
Yeah, or something with short line.
Short line.
Yes. So you had a large elementary school that had just a part-time counselor, and then Peyton City Elementary School even had less. There was a full-time counselor at Peyton City High School. Valley, for a long time, was half-time, and then it went to full-time, and then same thing at 100 High School.
That's what I said, I'm glad we have them at
Yes.
every
When
school
we-
now.
When we had the ability to fund more positions, that was one thing the board did at that time, was to make sure every school had at least 1 full-time counselor.
We had 7 counselors in 2011 when I took this position. And then we added 3, like Mr. Yeager said, a few years after that to get to 10. And we added 2 social workers. and then
I'm
we're
glad
adding
that the
2
social
more.
workers were added, that's
Right.
gonna help.
So we went
but
from a
it's not the
total of
same.
7 combined to a total of now 14.
And I appreciate that, well, it's my train of thought, Mrs. Novotny. I appreciate that we have them there and we need to keep them trained, and there may be time where we need to get more just because of the time that it is, you know, but, you know, I look at, Shortline has 1. You know, that's a big school for 1 person. And I know it's elementary and they're not doing college papers and all that, but that's still a lot of students.
Any other questions? The school is good. Mr. Kessler?
A question was raised to me, I'm not sure if Mr. Cook or Mr. Barkus can answer this. What's the status of social workers to be hired? I think Jackie Watkins is got the whole riverfront pretty much right now.
As far as the ones that are waiting to be hired, we interviewed, there was, I believe, 1 that met the criteria. So she's gonna be effective not until October, when she was gonna be available. And then I reposted the second one.
Okay.
So after that, I'm going to defer to Mr. Barkus as to the rest of your question there.
I was going to defer to Mrs. Devaghi, because she was on the committee, not myself.
Good job, Mr. working. Yes, we hired, one, girl out of the first, young lady out of the first, interview process. And she'll be working at Long Drain and 100 and then, in the county as necessary. She'll start on October 1st. She is, on maternity leave actually right now. She just had a baby on August 1st. So then we asked Mr. Cook to repost the position, which he did. Came down yesterday, so today I got 3 candidates, and so I'm getting ready to go ahead and schedule those interviews, probably tomorrow. And so that person will be working, I think primarily at New Martinsville School, and also filling in wherever else she might be needed. So we should have that done by the end of the week.
Thank you.
So give us 4.
I think these issues will raise to me that these things aren't always about money or even a will. It's about, are there trained, qualified professionals available to us? And I think that situation's only going to get worse. It's not a matter of whether the board or the finances will allow it, but we could post 100 jobs tomorrow. Would you be able to fill them? You know, and that's the big challenge. And I appreciate everybody's effort trying to work through. But I know those are difficult things to have to process.
And to help everybody out in the county, whether they're, remote or whether they're virtual or here, I was glad to see I had checked on a question that all the schools have their information about their counselors and all on their homepage, but it's being put on the county page as well.
Yes, we already did that.
It's been up for a couple,
Thank you.
2 weeks, I think.
I appreciate that.
That is an issue, Mr. Price, every time we have an open council position become available, just because W and Marshall never have a full class anymore for counselors. And there's been a couple of times in the past where we couldn't get a certified counselor. So that's an issue.
And when we recruited them out of state, they don't stay.
Board members, any other questions as it relates to back into the reentry? Next item on the agenda then is, under superintendent's recommendations, is the approval of the minutes from the August 24th meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. President.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Having been moved and properly seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And it's just for the recording, if we could state who made the
Okay.
motion.
Oh, I'm
That
sorry, 'cause
helps
you're gonna
too,
read
but
it, so
I've
you're
got
gonna
it,
read
but we're
okay.
good.
So Mr.
Mr.
Yeager moved and Amy Cooley properly seconded, and motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
Next item on the agenda are personnel matters.
And Mr. President, I need to recluse myself from this item on the agenda.
Please let the record show that Mr. J. Yeager has recused himself from personnel matters. Remaining board members, are there any questions as it relates to the personnel matters? I don't hear any questions. Is there a motion then as it relates to those personnel matters?
And move to approve the personnel matters as listed on the agenda.
Mr. Costello has properly moved.
I'll second.
And Mrs. Fawner has properly seconded the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. You can invite Mr. Yeager back in.
Got some fresh air.
Next item on the agenda is routine matters. That is request to attend Wetzel County Schools and request to be released from Wetzel County Schools, as well as the countywide ionization system project from H.E. Newman. Are there any questions concerning the routine matters? Are they gonna be, as soon as we approve this, are they gonna be ready to roll to add those systems into our
Absolutely.
HVAC systems?
Are those being put into like the career center, I still call it that, the tech center, sorry, and the board office building also? or just the
No, I
schools?
don't believe that was part of
Okay.
the plan. I think it was the plan where the majority of our students
The 8
were.
schools.
I don't believe it included the tech center, but it may have the tech center. I'd have to check on that.
Okay.
Do you know, Mark?
That I'm not sure whether it does.
I know it's not here.
I'm not aware of it either, I don't think.
Yeah.
It mentions all the places and not, it does not mention that.
Yeah. Oh,
In the contract,
that's right.
correct. Are there any questions, other questions, I should say? Is there a motion about routine matters?
Mr. President, I move that we approve routine matters as listed.
Mr. Yeager has moved that we approve the routine matters.
I'll second.
It's been seconded by Mrs. Fawner. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the treasurer's report. There's approval for payment of bills, approval for transfers, increases in the budget, and approval for the annual financial statements for fiscal year 2020. Board members, you all received that in your packet. Mr. Lancaster.
And I do have a few things, and I'll be as quick as I can, I promise you. But I do want to, have you ever seen Saturday Night Live and seen Debbie Downer? I came tonight to be the opposite of that. I came tonight to bring a substantial carryover budget, and there's some reasons why we have a good carryover budget. And then Debbie Downer showed up, and I brought him here tonight. Sorry about that, Scott. Scott Lemley, the assessor for Wetzel County Schools, has been sharing some emails. He's very up to date and up to speed on what's going on that could affect our assessed values, which drives the majority of our revenue in this county. And he's very good about communicating with me about what possibly could happen. And a couple emails I received this weekend from you, and then our conversation this morning, we thought it might be best that, there's some things that are coming, that may be coming, that might have a tremendous impact negatively on us, and rather than me try and relay what he is going to said to me, I'd like, if you don't mind, to speak just for a couple minutes on a couple of those items.
I'm really afraid coming up here now. I feel like I'm going to the firing squad and I got people behind me. If you guys want to take one and pass it down, I don't know what the
Nobody will
requirements
do
are.
anything.
You're good.
Clean most of the stains up there.
To get started, I'll start with the legislative rule first. Mr. Lancaster, first of all, appreciate the board letting me address you. Do you want me to leave my mask on or take it off? Can you all hear me okay?
You're far enough away from us, you can choose
Okay.
whichever's comfortable with you.
The Supreme Court had a case in the spring of last year. Mr. Lancaster attended the oral arguments. I was there as well. It involved CNX and Antero versus Ritchie and Doddridge counties regarding the working interest valuation of oil and gas wells. The Supreme Court ended up ruling that it was a mixed bag of, and I'll try to give you a broad brush summary, it was a mixed bag of reviews. The Supreme Court does not like the term caps involved in assessments of any tax, be it personal property or whatever. So they ordered the West Virginia State Tax Department to come up with a better procedure about studying the operating expenses of these Marcellus wells. The second thing the court did not like about the way the current rule was being interpreted by the state tax department was as if if you didn't meet the threshold of $175,000 worth of expenses or $150,000, it's changed back and forth a couple of times, then it went to a percentage, meaning that if the well was only worth $100,000, you couldn't write off $175,000. So then they had a percentage that would be allocated for expense as well. The Supreme Court didn't like that either. They didn't like that you had a percentage and a fixed dollar amount. So they wanted the rule revised in that regards. The one thing they did not allow in the ruling was to add what's called post-production expenses. So that's any expenses past the point of sale or the wellhead. That means removing the byproducts off the natural gas, whether it be butane, propane, ethane, etc. Do I have that pretty much? Okay, because as I said, I've been back and forth so many times in a row. So they tried to pass, this past legislative session, was called Senate Bill 655, which would take out, basically allow the oil and gas companies to take out all the expenses. It made it through the West Virginia Senate. Mr. Clements, Senator Clements and Senator Maroney both voted against the bill, and I actually spoke with Senator Clements this morning. So in my thinking, this legislative rule, now to the legislative rule. So Senate Bill 655 is out of the picture. The tax commissioner has the authority to promulgate or write rules to interpret legislation. Once the state tax commissioner writes a rule, then it goes before the rulemaking committee in each chamber of the legislature, meaning the House of Delegates and the West Virginia Senate. Within the rule, there's a couple things that bothers me within the rule. If you look at page 5, and I've tabbed these and highlighted some sections. I won't go over all my highlighted sections because I'm in the process now. Well, let me finish one thought I intended to say. So if we look at the definition, this underlined portion is a new part of the rule. Post-production expenses mean an expense or cost subsequent to production, including but not limited to an expense or cost related to severance taxes, severance taxes, pipeline service facilities, and you can see all those things that are added. That was not in the original rule, nor did the state Supreme Court say in any of their interpretation or written opinion that they needed to consider post-production expenses. My biggest problem with this is it's very broad. I don't think, number one, severance taxes should be included, just as an example. And then you should not put in there including but not limited to, because that means they can add anything they want to. I mean, so that could substantially hurt your evaluation. Now, if you go to page page 17 to page 18. To summarize, the working interest model is what the oil and gas companies is assessed at. So each well that has a leg coming off of it has a working interest valuation. And if you see, it says that the operating and production expenses will be deducted from their net operating or their operating revenue. If you look at the royalty interest model, so let's say for example Mrs. Fauner owns 100 acres worth of oil and gas that she inherited from her great-great-grandmother. And let's say for example that when that lease was signed back in the early 1900s, some of those leases are being interpreted that the post-production expenses can be deducted from that lease. The royalty owner, if you look at the royalty interest model, they still have to pay at their gross receipts. So if say she gets $1 million, but once all the expenses are deducted out, she's only getting a check for $100,000, and I'm oversimplifying this. She's still going to be appraised. Her value is still going to be appraised at $1 million, while the working interest for the oil and gas company gets to deduct not only from her, but from their assessed valuation, which I think is totally unfair. So I have a problem with it. Number one, I feel I want to be careful how I say this. I feel this was a backdoor policy because the oil and gas company did not get what they wanted. They sat down with the tax commissioner, and I have a written email that the West Virginia Oil and Natural Gas Association, the Independent Oil and Gas Association, met with the tax commissioner to promulgate this rule. I have a problem with that. And secondly, I think it was just done because they didn't get what they wanted in the legislature. What my concern is for you guys, for us as an assessed value, I have talked with the West Virginia Budget and Policy Commission today, and based upon their analysis of Senate Bill 655, which a lot of this language in this rule mirrors the Senate Bill 655 earlier in the legislature, it would cut the assessment of the working interest valuation by 50%. given. I calculated at about 50, they calculated about 57% reduction, which would be, I assess about $2 billion in the county, so you're looking at every bit of at least 750 million being gone. I understand that's not half of the 200 billion, but you're looking at a lot of value that's could be cut off the books if this goes through.
So if this goes through, what is the procedure now?
Okay, the rule's up for public comment period right now, so I'm in the process of drafting a letter. West Virginia Budget Policy Commission's in process of drafting a letter to the West Virginia. Anyways, the public comment period ends Monday, September 21st. So they'll look at the comments and decide if they're going to revise the rule. If the rule does not get revised, then it goes to the rule-making committees in the House of Delegates and the State Senate. Then they have to pass through their processes, and I think then the governor has to sign off on it. But this won't, unless the legislature calls, the Rules Committee calls a special session, this will not go into effect until the legislature meets next year, the first part of next year.
So where we are is maybe nothing at this point, but it's a big warning for us.
Yeah.
Could you?
It would affect my valuations that I certified July 1 of 2021.
Okay.
Or, excuse me, March of 2022.
Got it.
So it'll affect your budget.
So that's one thing. That's one negative
That's one
thing. Now the
negative.
other thing, and this may not come to pass, we don't know that yet, but we're getting, you're trying to
I'm
gather
scared.
some
I am
support.
very scared about it because of the process that it's and the fact that the tax
It would be,
commissioners read the rule.
from what I'm seeing, I mean, it would be obviously a drastic reduction in revenue for us.
Can I ask a question before you go
Sure.
on? Who can comment on this? Anybody?
Anybody. In fact, once I get my letter done tomorrow, I'm hoping I'm having an attorney that represents my office help me. I've been all day on phone calls regarding this piece of potential legislation. As soon as I get my letter drafted, I'm going to forward it to Mr. Lancaster. That was my plan. I'm trying to get as many associations as possible to draft a letter.
I guess the question I'm asking is, can the board draft a letter commenting on that, or?
I wouldn't see why not. I'd say you'll probably get a lot of support. Now,
Yeah.
Now did
the rule, but the letters have to be in by the 21st. So I don't know what the board processes are. I don't think it would have to follow the Open Meetings Act because you're not exactly.
But
I'm overstepping my boundaries.
But it's
by
still
saying
not
that.
set in stone even after that, right?
No,
It has to go through the legislative process.
But they are
There's plenty of time.
Yeah, and the legislature will get the comments that's
Yes.
submitted. The Board of Education did file letters during the Supreme Court hearing, the Watts County Board of Education, and I think several other boards of education made written responses to. But yeah, anybody's welcome to make a comment.
You can make a personal public comment as a private
Citizen.
and board member, and I think our approach probably would be if this does get through to the next level, then we could put an agenda item on our schedule and draft something that we would want to say as it relates to that. I don't know, I'd struggle a little bit too in my own mind trying to figure out where we fit in the open meeting laws, but I would, on the side of caution, I would say we probably can't do anything tonight.
Right.
The deadline's Monday, I don't know whether we wanna call a work session to do that, and so I think we wait until see where this goes, and at next level, then we need to say something.
In all the processes, if you want to do anything as an individual, is on your cover page here. If you want to send an email or write a letter.
And you're welcome, anybody.
Yeah, anybody can do it as an individual.
Now, if we send a letter from ourselves, we just sign it as ourselves. We don't sign as ourselves and say that we're a board member.
Well, I mean, you don't represent the board.
That's what I was gonna say. So we just, I just wanted to clarify
I
that.
mean, you can.
We could write an individual
Your
one.
technically your title is important anyway, but you wanna be cautious not to seem like you're representing.
Right, that's what I wanted to make sure.
How we're gonna do it.
So the second item, and now this one will push us back a little bit. But, you know, I always ask for, you know, when I bring a carryover balance to the board, I want to be careful with, okay, what's next year going to be like before we start allocating all of those funds, because we might need some of it to balance the budget. Those projections technically really aren't solid until December.
I'm required to have
This is
values.
next year's school budget.
Yeah, I'm required to have values certified by March 3rd of every year, so tax tickets can be generated on July 15th. But I have a general idea in December where we stand.
So, but in your conversation with me this morning, I'm not, sound like
You're
I've got
fine,
you
go
on the
ahead.
stand.
No, that's fine, no.
But we talked
Dark
about,
cloud.
it's nothing set in stone, but
Nothing set in
it's gonna be down again. Our assessed values are gonna drop.
I'm worried we're going to be down significantly because we do not have any new natural or any new Marcellus wells going on that we're aware of. If we do, they're going to be small in numbers. We do not have, last year when I certified value, we had 4 drilling rigs in the county. We have 1 drilling rig in the county this year. Everything else, as the wells get older, the more decline that they receive, so the values go down on those. And everything that deals with natural resources, let me preface this. Anything involving natural resources, whether it's producing or reserve, state tax department values, and they send it to me to put on the books. I value your home, your garage, your personal business, but anything dealing with industrial properties, natural resource properties, or properties that are valued by the Board of Public Works come to me from the state tax department.
And so, just if it were to drop 400 million, which isn't, I can tell you what that means to us, which that's a possibility.
It is a possibility.
That's a very, we won't know for sure, but that's a very good possibility. If it were to drop 400 million, what that means to us, I ran the numbers, excess levy revenues would drop next year by $3.5 million. So we're now, that's excess levy. I didn't count regular levy because that'll offset by state aid. But excess levy, if those assessed values drop by $400 million, we're looking at a real decline in revenue of $3.5 million next year. Now, the bright side is we went up this year by $3 million. So it's not like, there are a lot of other counties that would like to be in our situation, but that's a significant drop for us that we probably should plan for. But again, December will have a more accurate number. Maybe that's high, maybe that's low, but we've been very conservative here. We've had so many things coming at us. Antero's lawsuit and so many things coming at us that could have negative impacts that we've set some money aside, which is part of the reason why I'm bringing a carryover to you tonight that's a little higher, is because we've been conservative, setting aside monies for these possibilities. We now have two even bigger possibilities than we faced before. So that's all, Scott. I appreciate you coming tonight.
No problem.
And that's really what he's more of an expert on that than I'll ever be.
I appreciate that. I just try to keep up with it. I will say that I should have read the legislative rule before I did this. I just never dreamed the state tax department would do what they done. And I don't understand their thinking, because the more money we bring in at the local level, the less the school aid formula has to kick in. And I know you've probably seen a decline in what the state aids had to give to Wetzel County.
Yes.
And at one point, Doddridge County was not receiving any state aid formula money, that all their revenue was coming in at the local levels. So. But anytime you all have any questions, if you all have any questions for me now, please let me know.
Mr. Lindley's always, anytime I run into him, he's on it, he's working, he's hitting me up about something, so it's great information.
I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, sending emails and worrying about this, and it's bothersome on multiple levels for me.
Thank you for your communication.
Thank you all, yeah. Anytime you have any questions, let me know and I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
So I have one more item that's not an actionable item that I'd like to mention. The State Department recommended that the board at least be made aware of the executive order by the president that happened, I don't even know when it was now, about the taxes. If anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, It's a deferral. Let me find my paper and set this aside. It's actually called the President's Memorandum on Deferring Payroll Tax Obligations in light of the ongoing COVID-19 disaster. The bottom line is, it was he gave an executive order to defer taxes, which would be Social Security. So we have that option to defer that. The state, it truly is an option, the way that their recommendation to us, that each board has their own option on what to do with that. The only calls that I have received so far is, please don't defer my taxes, and I have received those, because what could happen, it's just a deferral, it's not an elimination or forgiveness at this point. If we were to stop taking out that Social Security, and then come around in January, we've got to start doubling up on everybody's Social Security. Most people don't want that. So we're we've chosen to follow the same thing that the State Department is doing for their employees, and we are not participating in that right now. We're continuing to withhold that. If down the road it is truly forgiven, then we'll be able to do that at that point. We'll have to be able to give that back to those employees at some point. It'll be a process, I'm sure, but for right now, I think we've decided, unless the board has any arguments against that, but I think that's probably the best thing to do for employees, and since it is just a deferral, to not defer those taxes at this time. So I just wanted to.
That doesn't require any action, though.
No action whatsoever. It's just what we've decided to do upstairs, and of course we could change that, but that's where we are right now. We're in each county. There may be some counties. I would be surprised if any county does go along with that right now, but there might be. I know the State Department and us, we are not doing it at this point. I'm sure 54 other counties probably won't participate in it as well, but I don't know. And then the action items that I have, those 3 items. First is the approval for payment of the bills, which you have received. The second item is the transfers and increases in the budget. I'm not going to go over everything that is in that packet, but these are it's summarized for you on the front page. The budget from last year doesn't automatically get carried over into the new year. There are a lot of entries that have to be done. This explains that. So these are monies you've already approved, with the exception of one item. These are the items that we already approved and had left over, carried over into the existing budgets, except for the one item, and that is the carryover balance. And what I'm doing with that, I'm required by September 30th to bring that to the board. I'm bringing that carryover balance, which I'll talk about with the financial statements, to you tonight and putting it into a contingency line item. So we are supplementing the budget by the carryover balance. It's going into a contingency line item until we can meet and allocate those funds. We typically have a separate meeting to do that. But so tonight we're bringing it to that line item, and then after our next meeting, whenever we decide to have that, we will do a transfer into the individual line items for expenditure. So that's the transfers and increases in the budget that I'm bringing. And the financial statement, really quickly, I put some tabs in here, some things on page 5, property tax. This is what I'm rambling a little bit. This is the biggest thing I do as a treasurer, are these financial statements. I'm so glad when I get to today, so I don't have to look at them again. But I did highlight a few things that I think might be worth pointing out. Property taxes increased by approximately $3.1 million on page 5 as a result of increase in assessed values. That's what we've talked about. Again, we might lose that in a year, but right now that's where we are. I'm going to flip over to the one that everybody wants to know, is page 12, the carryover balance. And we are in good financial shape right now. I'm bringing a carryover balance to you of $8,300,499, so $8.3 million. And if you look what I did on that page, you see carryover already budgeted for this current year is 0. That's unusual for us in the past several years. We've always had to borrow from that carryover a couple $1 million to balance this current budget. Well, with our property values, assessed values going up. We didn't have to do that this year. So that means we don't have to borrow from that money. We get to reallocate that full amount. So we truly have a carryover balance of $8.3 million that we get to rebudget now. There are a couple reasons for that. The main one is the increase in taxes from $3 million. That's going to be added to this balance. That's why it's so high. House Bill 206 that passed really had a positive impact on us. One of those things is local share. Used to be 90% of those values we had to cover out of our own. They lowered that with House Bill 206 to 85%, which really all that means to us is another $750,000 that we didn't have a year ago per year. And then, of course, I mentioned the conservative nature. We set aside money for all these possible things, and our taxes didn't go down as much as we thought they would from those lawsuits. So by setting that money aside, it's now here, still sitting there that we haven't had to use yet. So again, this supplement brings that $8.3 million into a contingency line item for us to discuss at a future date. A couple other items quickly, just so if you want to see on page 14, you can see our revenues and expenditures by source, our expenditures by program. If you really want to see that, it's all in there for the year. Our payroll for the year was $24 million. So we are a large employer in this county. So we have the luxury of and the responsibility of spending that money wisely. And the only other thing I want to say is, if you want to look at page 54, it shows the schedule of excess levy revenues and expenditures. We have a responsibility to meet that excess levy, which was passed by voters by 90%. So this proves that we are following that excess levy. We are meeting the requirements of that levy, something that's required. And that all being said, I'm asking for approval on items A, B, and C.
Board members, are there any questions as it relates to the treasurer's report?
I move for approval.
Mr. Castlew moves for approval of the treasurer's report. Is there a second?
I second.
Mrs. Cooley seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Lancaster.
Mr. Lancaster, real quick, at one point, I believe we were second only to Doddridge per student expenditure. Is that still?
We're number one.
We're number one now?
We are number one.
We
Yes,
spend more money per student than any other
anybody
county
in the
state
state.
of West Virginia.
That is correct. And the other counties that are close to us are those counties like Marshall County and Tyler County and Doddridge County, the ones that have the Marcellus and Utica shale. So that's the only way we can do that. And an excess levy. Without an excess levy, it really wouldn't matter.
I got you. I was just curious. Thank you.
And thank you for the whole thing. I mean, I'm impressed by all the information you've given us, and that's been a lot of work.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the second reading of the revised Wetzel County Policy IIP, a virtual distance learning policy. It is second reading. We heard delegates tonight speak to this policy. Board members, are there any questions, concerns, things that you would like to express or consider as it relates to the policy?
To incorporate whatever the two ladies had to say tonight into the policy, what would the procedure be for that?
We are permitted to amend. There could be a motion to amend and add and or take away. And then a motion to amend, the amendment would then be voted on. If it goes through, then would it be added or changed, and then you vote on the policy. That makes sense.
And the process would all go through this evening?
Yeah, but you can amend on second reading and vote to finalize in the same meeting.
I'm not sure that that's necessary, according to the way the policy's written now. We've pretty much addressed that issue.
Yeah.
You're saying you don't think we need to do what she gave us? Is that what you're saying?
From what I don't think so. I think the policy takes care of that.
See, I don't. I think we need more exact steps, that this is what's gonna happen, this is what's gonna happen, you're gonna give a data plan and before you get the new student in, and I think that needs in there.
I think you can paint yourself into a corner in that you needs to be some discretion because of circumstances that may
Right.
occur.
Well, that's
I'll give you, for instance, let's say that we have an outbreak of COVID in this county. Okay, you could have, if, you know, while we may go to yellow and still be able to open and keep our schools open, there will probably be a request for people to move their children to distance learning. And that may or may not be the thing to do at the time, but it may be something that, you know, I just don't want to say that, you know, I think we need to look at each case by circumstances. And I want to know is how many students have been going back and forth?
And
That's what she said.
I think it's been several, I don't know if it's the same students, I don't have a number, but there's been a lot of students.
Is that, is that back and forth or just back? You understand what I'm saying? Is it a
Right.
single transition or are we talking about people that have waffled back and forth?
Well, we've had 1 week of school.
Right.
So prior to the 1 week of school, did we have some families who changed their mind? Yes.
Yeah.
How many, you know, at that point in time, we asked all families to sign up by August 21st. We had 601. First day of school, we had 629. So 98% of the families who chose that had signed up by the time we had asked them to do it. Well, Mr. Yeager was saying, when Mrs. Wells, Mrs. Stanford, Mr. McPherson, and myself, we all discussed the wording of the policy when we put that in a few weeks ago. And we didn't want to paint ourselves into a corner, and we wanted to be flexible enough to have some flexibility and accommodations. You know, I think the wording does meet what they're asking. We have that flexibility. The principals have been told that if you have someone who is abusing this going back and forth, let us know. I haven't received any of those calls yet. Neither has Mrs. Wells or Mr. McPherson.
And we can all agree to disagree on some of these, right? But I think the word may, and I think the words case by case answers it. You take that situation and you evaluate it, and if it's somebody that's already moved once, you say to them, you know, you've already made one transition.
Yes.
After the 10 days. We think you need to stay put until the end of the semester. You've got that discretion under policy. You've got that discretion to look at that. There may be some extenuating circumstance that you didn't anticipate, but if we narrow,
Correct.
then you don't have any flexibility to even consider that. If the policy is very narrow, then you don't have that flexibility. You have to say, I'm sorry, the policy says. And that's why I know sometimes. Trust me, I'm a guy, sometimes it likes, you know, I like it nice and clean, because I think flexibility sometimes can be a two-edged sword. But I think as it relates to COVID issues, in the pandemic world we're in, I would hope that the people making the decisions for the case-by-case situations are professionals, are wise enough to go, hey, you know what, I see a pattern here, I see a situation, and let those professionals step in and handle that rather than dictate to them, this is how you're going to handle that. Now, maybe maybe the professionals don't want that. I don't know. Maybe they don't want that responsibility. Maybe they want a cut and dry approach. Again, I don't want to speak on their behalf, but it sure seems to me.
I think in the situation we're in, how it's constantly changing, evolving. If you're too restrictive and you paint yourself into a corner too much, it's gonna come back. We're gonna be here too much now, change it again. Next month, change it again. Whereas if we just have the wording, flexibility, and trust the people to look at it case by case.
I'll use the example about the poor internet service. You may have a family out in the county that decided to go distance learning, and we've only, this is only the 5th day of school. And, that doesn't work. There's nothing they can do about that internet. I mean, they're not gonna, they can call whoever they want, it's not gonna improve. So if that instance, if they don't have that capability of internet, they want to go back to their next option is going back to school.
Correct.
And by adding this, they wouldn't be allowed to do that.
So I like the idea of keeping it the same, where it's case by case. And to just apply it to my own life with my daughter's surgery coming out. If she were in school, I would be taking her out for a minimum of a month because of the surgery. But then after that, I know her and she would want to be right back in the school. So right there you would be looking at 2 changes. And so I think we need to keep that open as a case by case. The one thing that she did mention, that Miss Amos mentioned, that I find bothersome though, is kids just showing up. And I do think that we should add in here, and I'm not necessarily thinking that 24-hour notice is enough. Because it might involve,
I agree with that.
it might involve rearranging a classroom, it might involve a lot more extra steps than 24 hours can give. And I do feel that needs added.
That was fair and reasonable suggestion. Yeah.
And yes, and it never crossed my mind before, but to know that a child just shows up, and I'm sure it happens.
Maybe 3 days.
I'm sorry?
Maybe 3 days would give enough time.
And I would feel very comfortable with that.
I would too.
And if we feel like we need to amend that and put that into policy, again, I'm still thinking in my mind that a principal could say to that person, okay, you desire this training. It's Tuesday, next Monday, come into school.
I agree, but if I was a parent looking at this, I
You
would
think
think
it
I
can
can just go
happen.
to school
I
and
get you.
switch them
I
right
get
then
you.
and there.
Yeah, send them on the bus the next day.
Mhm. Well, I don't even have to do that, I just need to show up in the office and switch them.
But she's right, they'll show up on the bus.
Well, that's,
You know, they will show up at the bus stop. The
I'm
bus
trying to be
driver will be
positive.
caught right in the middle of it.
For the people that
That's what's
are
how it
the
goes.
originators of this policy, you're comfortable with the changing with 3 days or?
Yes, we are.
And I'm certainly not, you know, if there's abusers, people that want to bring their kids back to school and then the following week they want to take them back out, but no, I'm not for any of that. That's,
Right.
you know, but,
I agree.
But we don't want to punish everybody for that.
Exactly. And you never
Especially
know,
during this.
the home circumstances may change. There's
Right.
something that, some terrible tragedy or something may make it so that learning at home is impossible.
And we kind of created a challenge here too with our approach with that 2 weeks of only going 1 day and our 10 days are gone. At the end of this week, they're gone.
Yes.
And nobody even knows what this, we still don't even know
Right.
until we get through technically next week. We're not even, you know what, we're just gonna start getting a clue by then. And that, you know, so we kind of created some of this challenge in some senses, so let's, you know, I think we definitely still need that case by case, but we could add a simple statement, make a motion to amend, that says 3 days notice is required for any transition.
That's fair.
Fair? So I will make a motion that we, well, you brought up, you wanna make the motion that we amend the 3 days notice? Or I could say it again if you want. I just always feel awkward as the president to make a motion.
No, just go ahead.
But I make a motion then that we amend the policy to add the statement, that all transition requests will require 3 days notice.
And I'll second
Mr. Price made the motion of amendment that all transitions will require 3 days notice. Mr. Yeager has seconded that amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It was unanimously amended to include that statement. I think I said it twice as a recording so we can make that. Are there any other questions, thoughts as it relates to the policy? now that we've added that amendment to it.
I move that we approve on second reading virtual policy.
I second.
Mr. Castello has properly motioned that we accept the now amended IIP virtual distance learning policy on second reading. Mrs. Cooley has seconded that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda, board members, are there any committee reports?
Mr. Tillman and I will be attending virtually on Thursday, Love-Tie board meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other committee reports?
You have the
Thank you, Mr. Kessler.
School Board Association next Friday, correct?
Yes, we will all be.
That is now what, next month?
Next
It's
Friday,
changed.
and
then
The 25th.
now it's noon to
Yes.
4.
Noon to 4, and board members, we will have this.
Absolutely.
Mr.
so if you
Tillman,
want to
please
do
send
that,
us a reminder.
Absolutely, I will. That morning and evening, or? I can do
And
it.
so it is only starting at noon?
It's starting at noon.
Okay, I thought maybe there was still a morning session that they haven't
No,
announced.
the Association of School Administrators has a meeting over in Bridgeport that day at 10, and they're hoping to get
Okay.
done, and they may log on there. I don't know if I'll attend over there or just be here with you all. I may stay here and not attend the association meeting in Bridgeport, so
I'm
that's
sure
where they
it'll be
moved that. in.
enlightening, as always.
And I'm assuming it's gonna be what, 4 hours of
12.
training credit?
Yeah, it's 12 to 4, yeah.
So
I
it's
believe.
gonna get 4 hours of credit out of it instead of the 7 that's normally done on that fold.
Okay.
And I'm still working with the High Valley superintendents, the Northern Panhandle, to see maybe we can do something together. And doing something there that we, pick up the other one with, I think there was some discussion there that'd be neat to get done, so.
Those meetings that we've had in the past 2 years, with the other counties,
Mhm.
I thought it were the most productive.
The regional ones.
Regional
Yeah.
ones, the ones that we've had.
This would be a legal review or something, that'd be good, so.
Mr. Castello and I will also have the rest of our orientation. We haven't been oriented yet. They said late fall. We haven't been told a date, but late fall.
All right, are there any other items?
One thing, on the State Department, West Virginia Department of Education, Policy 2436.10, participation in extracurricular activities. That is now up for public comment. It can be from anybody, in the state that wants to comment on it. And most of the changes that I looked at there's like a lot of pages, but it's mainly the last 3, are dealing with extracurricular activities and homeschooling. So you might want to go to that site, West Virginia Department of Education. If you go under state policies, it's the first thing listed there to comment on. And that has to be commented on by October 13th.
Thank you, Mrs. Farmer. Any other items?
You would like for me to proceed with maybe, Mr. Price, you and Mrs. Bonner with a policy group to start moving forward with our attorney, doing something that way?
Yeah.
You think, okay?
Yeah, just let us
All
know.
right. I will, I'll set that up and
Absolutely.
work through that.
Any other items?
Other items, I just wanna, welcome the directors of anything that they wanna report out to you guys. I tell you, like I said, the staff, everybody has been, like Mr. Batten said, all the staff that he's involved with, it's been incredibly smooth, and just the updates that we have, and I know Superintendent Birch said that we have to be able to pivot.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're doing, and trying to keep the communication going to you guys along with everybody else. But please, if any of you guys want to report out anything, we've done incredible things, and thank you all for being here and being able to move the system forward like we're doing with this during this terrible time. So thank you. So anything you want to speak up, anything you want to add?
Good, Mr. Burke.
I just wanted to clarify one thing from earlier, just to make sure Mrs. Farmer and I are on the same page. When we're talking about the counselors being licensed or certified, all of our counselors are certified, and they're all licensed to be school counselors in the state of West Virginia. Now, I think what you're talking about is we have one counselor who's also licensed in a private field.
All right, so that's why I
which is
didn't
unusual.
understand that, okay.
But we have one counselor who was a counselor in a private field before she came to us.
Okay.
Okay, so they're all licensed to be a counselor in the state of West Virginia.
Thank you.
And I will say, I've been out to all the schools, last week, and it was pretty amazing seeing the kids come in, and every one of the children had face masks on that I saw. And it's just to put a thank you out there to parents, teachers, principals. I mean, it was really a smooth start.
From the secondary perspective, I second everything Mrs. Stanford said.
Nice to have a little normalcy.
Yes.
I think sometimes our children are probably more resilient than we give them credit for.
And I apologize, I left the bus mechanics and bus aides out myself.
They're in trouble.
The tremendous job they did getting those buses prepared and the aides and all the work they did, it was just unbelievable to watch it transpire. So I apologize.
Anyone else?
Mr. McPherson, thank you guys all.
Thank you all for being here.
I don't have anything worth talking about today.
Mr. Lanker, as soon as you're ready to roll, just let us know and we'll call work session. Okay.
It's always, you wanna get to the projects that we wanna do, but we also, that December projection is so valuable, you know, that's to know what our assessed values are gonna be, so we'll talk about that.
You guys are good to go.
Tillman
Just
and I
let-
will discuss it and figure out something.
Let us know what we need to do.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. I don't have anything else. Board members, anything else? The date and time then of the next meeting being September 28th, a regular board meeting at 6 o'clock. I move for adjournment.
Second.
Mr. Price moves to adjourn. Mr. Yeager properly seconded that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously and the meeting is adjourned.